It all started in the spring of 1949. Leaders gathered in Washington, still haunted by memories of a world torn apart, cities flattened, families erased, a continent that had twice dragged humanity into catastrophe. From that trauma, a decision was made that would forever change global security. 12 nations agreed to link the fate of the United States to the defense of Europe, something no American president had ever done in peacetime. But this alliance wasn't meant to last forever. It was designed as a temporary safeguard, a shield to give Europe time to rebuild its economies, restore stability, and stand on its own feet. Even General Dwight Eisenhower, the hero of D-Day, told Congress that if American troops were still in Europe 10 years later, it would mean the alliance had failed. History, however, had other plans. Decades passed, and the temporary solution became permanent. American forces remained on European soil long after the world that created the alliance had fundamentally changed. Think back to the end of World War II. Europe was shattered. Its empires were gone, its infrastructure destroyed, its people exhausted. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union emerged with immense military strength, extending its control across Eastern Europe and deepening fear in the West. The Berlin blockade of 1948 was a defining moment. It wasn't a war of weapons, but a war of will. An unprecedented airlift kept an entire city alive, proving just how much European stability depended on American commitment. As the Cold War intensified, the U.S. poured resources into defending the continent. It deployed troops, built bases, and extended its nuclear protection. All of this was done with the belief that it was a temporary bridge to European self-reliance, not a permanent substitute for it. But over time, many European governments shifted their priorities. They focused on domestic recovery and social programs, gradually cutting defense spending while relying on the security provided by the alliance. This didn't happen overnight. It was the result of years of small budget choices and the comfortable assumption that the security umbrella would always be there. American presidents, one after another, noticed this imbalance. They privately and publicly urged allies to share more of the responsibility, warning that long-term dependency would weaken the alliance. But these warnings rarely led to real change. Then, the Cold War ended. The Soviet Union collapsed. The original threat that created the alliance was gone. This should have been a moment to rethink everything. Instead of winding down, the alliance expanded. It offered security guarantees to new members in Central and Eastern Europe. This was meant to promote stability, but it also increased America's obligations without a corresponding shift in the burden. New commitments were layered onto old ones, but the underlying structure stayed the same. The United States provided the majority of the military muscle, strategic planning, and leadership. Joint missions in places like Afghanistan and Libya revealed both the strengths and weaknesses of this arrangement. They showed that cooperation was valuable, but they also highlighted how heavily these operations relied on American logistics, intelligence, and funding. The responsibility was clearly uneven. Again and again, at summits and meetings, leaders promised to fix the imbalance. They set spending targets and timelines, yet action rarely matched the rhetoric, and deadlines came and went. The problem became impossible to ignore as global tensions rose and new threats emerged. The conflict in Ukraine served as a massive wake-up call, exposing gaps in military readiness and industrial capacity across Europe, once again placing enormous demands on the United States. These events have reignited the debate. What should collective security look like today? How can an alliance born in one era adapt to another without losing its balance? Today, the alliance is not a failure. It's a complex legacy of choices made over generations, shaped by fear, recovery, comfort, and political convenience. Its future depends less on slogans and more on whether all members are willing to align their responsibilities with their commitments. This story is about shared security and shared effort. It's about understanding that stability cannot rest on the shoulders of one nation forever. Partnerships endure not through promises alone, but through consistent action and accountability. As history shows, arrangements created for urgent needs can quietly become permanent if we don't question them. The challenge now isn't to abandon cooperation, but to ensure it evolves in a way that is balanced, sustainable, and honest. The true strength of any alliance lies not in how long it lasts, but in how fairly its burdens are carried. That's a lesson as relevant today as it was in the aftermath of a world at war. Thanks for watching. If you found this perspective interesting, please consider liking and subscribing for more content.